Super Bowl out of me. Believe that. Believe that.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to episode 14 of the Everything Ravens podcast. My name is Logan. I'm the host of this podcast. I run the Instagram account at everything_Ravens, which is the biggest Ravens fan page community on Instagram, sitting at 39,000 followers as we start this recording. Make sure you follow the account as well as follow at Everything Ravens podcast to get all the latest updates involving this podcast. So today we have a game recap. I am joined by Brooks. Introduce yourself, Brooks.
What's up, Ravens family? Excited to be here. Hope everyone had a good week one. Excited to give you guys a little bit of our take on how we thought the Ravens did out on the field.
So, this podcast, it's pretty straightforward. You guys know what happened yesterday. We played the Cleveland Browns. We didn't just play the Cleveland Browns. We dismantled the Cleveland Browns, beat them by a final score of 38-6. Brooks, first, what are your thoughts on how that game went?
Initially, right off the bat, you have to love there was very few hiccups in the offense. Obviously, some week one blunders, but nothing out of the ordinary, especially without the preseason and the problems we had during camp. We looked great. The offense picked up right where it left off. That makes it 13 straight regular season victories. I was happy with the performance.
Yeah, I loved what I saw. And first of all, before we go anywhere with this game, I would like to say what I love the most with this game, and that's the performances we got from our rookies. I think Patrick Queen was the player of the game for this game, recording 8 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble. J.K. Dobbins had 2 touchdown runs. Devin Duvernay, he had a really nice kick return. He also had that really nice screen pass that went for like 12 yards. Tyree Phillips, I thought, did a pretty good job at right guard. Malik Harrison, I thought, played good when he was on the field. Also, I liked what I saw from Broderick Washington and James Prochet in the limited snaps that they got.
Look, we talked about it all offseason. We both were very high on this draft class. We expected them to make impacts as rookies, and it came off a little bit biased because obviously not every pick hits. But what they did this Sunday shows that these are Raven players. They're ready to hit the field. Patrick Queen, especially, he was everywhere. The sack, he came right down on the blitz. He fought through a block. They tried to pick him up. He was not going to be stopped. He came down, brought Baker down. I loved seeing Baker at the turf again. It was great watching the guys go out there compete. And a big theme this week for the Ravens, obviously it's easy when you're winning and you're winning by the margin that they did, but they talked about, both Lamar and Calais Campbell, 2 leaders on the opposite sides of the ball, talked about bringing your own energy. Without fans in the stadium, you have to bring your own energy, and they certainly did that on Sunday.
Yeah, I really love the energy that they played with. The Ravens look like they have not taken a step back from last year despite losing Marshall Yanda. If I had to complain about one thing, I would say that I wasn't entirely impressed with how our offensive line performed, but granted, Cleveland does have a very good defensive line, and we were battling some injuries. Ronnie Stanley went down midway through that game, so I think it's going to take a little bit of time for this offensive line to really gel since we lost Yanda. So other than that, I'd say this game was nearly flawless by the Ravens.
Yep, I agree with you. It is hard to complain in a 38-6 victory, but if there was a couple areas that I want to go into, offensive line, obviously Stanley went down. We kicked Fluker over to tackle, which I thought was an interesting coaching decision. Obviously, Orlando Brown and him being huge tackles when they were in there together. They talked about that a little bit on the air. But certainly Myles Garrett and that defensive front for the Browns got after Lamar a little bit more than I would have liked. Certainly, people underestimate the addition of Adrian Claiborne and then Olivier Vernon healthy to start the season. It was a lot for us to handle. And then on the other side of it, I know we made a point of emphasis this offseason to stop the run. And while we did a great job against the Browns receivers and forced them to be in passing situations, when they were able to get the ball to Chubb and Kareem Hunt, they were able to get to the second level with ease. Nick Chubb, 6 yards per carry, Kareem Hunt right behind him with 5.5. They're an exceptional running team and an elite running back duo, but we got to clean that up.
Yeah, in a way that kind of worries me still, considering Derrick Henry, we all know what he did to us last year. The Titans play a team like that. Their game plans are very straightforward. They're going to run it at us 30 times a game. So Cleveland, their play calling, let's be real, was really bad. And we got – I wouldn't say we wouldn't have won if their play calling was good. We would have beat the Browns either way. But I believe a big part of the blowout was how bad their play calling was. If I was them, I would have ran it with Chubb, ran it with Hunt, instead of putting the ball in Baker's hands. Because Baker, think Baker's improved any since last year, and I really don't think he showed it in this game.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it on multiple pods before how this has to be a breakout year for Baker. We talked about when we previewed this game, talked about it with the Browns. It's a big year for him. He didn't really come out firing like you'd expect for someone who needs to do that this year. I agree with you on the coaching. I think Stefanski in his first game, it reminded me of how we talked about how we coached against the Chiefs. He was looking too hard for the big play. He was looking too hard to make this deal because he felt that he was outmatched on paper. And, when you talk about the Browns, their lineup is loaded with talent offensively and defensively. But clearly, when someone's going up against the Ravens, they feel the pressure, make those big plays. 2 fourth downs, sort of in field goal range. I know that they had struggled kicking the ball, but he decided to go for it. The fake punt early in the game, a lot of questionable decisions. And then obviously he was throwing downfield against our top-notch corners. He was not running the ball as much as he should have early. Those were some questionable decision-making to me, but credit to our secondary. I had some questions going in. Tavon Young looked good, looked healthy, stepped up. And then Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey, I know he had that bit of an injury scare, but while he was out there, got back out there, they did a shutdown job. They looked amazing, as they always do, and they rattled Odell Beckham, which was really fun to watch.
I love how Odell was talking all that crap this offseason, talking about Marcus Peters getting an extension, putting can't wait with 3 periods. And I love what we did to him. Odell Beckham talking all that crap, ended up not being able to back it up, had 10 targets, only 3 catches, 22 yards, and obviously that wide open drop pass. So it really makes me happy to see all of that backfire on him.
Yeah, Odell was visually frustrated. I loved it. Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey clearly loved it. You saw when Marcus Peters got his hand in there on a 3rd down pass and broke it up, they were celebrating around a dejected Odell. They were having fun with it. That goes along the lines of what we talked about, bringing your own energy. They brought it on the defensive side of the ball. Those are 2 guys, Marcus Peters and Odell, who are going to talk and chirp at each other all game, and Marcus Peters clearly won that battle, which was so fun to watch.
And when you talk about energy and stuff like that, I think that's a real big difference between us and the Browns, is just how much better we play as a team, how much better our team chemistry is, how much better our locker room gets along. And I think that really also made a huge impact in this game, because there's no denying that Cleveland has a lot of talent, but their locker room chemistry just flat out sucks. It really does.
And I think it's going to make a big impact all season, at least until there's fans there. Because at this time, right now in a quiet stadium, it's harder for us as viewers on TV to understand the difference, but it makes such a difference to those players down on the field. And when you're talking about a team like the Ravens who thrive off each other's success, the offense loves what other guys are scoring. They have a great time. They all run out to the end zone together to celebrate. The defense, when they make big plays, they take those photos. They love it. You can see them on the sidelines cheering each other on. When we got rid of Earl Thomas, I think that makes it even more important this season to understand team chemistry comes first this year. It's not like other years. That's one of the many differences. And it showed yesterday in more ways than one.
Oh, yeah, that's one thing that Baltimore has always valued. You hear everyone say play like a Raven. It's like you fit into this culture, else you're not going to be a part of here. That's why they cut Earl Thomas. That's why they're not signing Antonio Brown. They want guys that they know will be good influence to this locker room and will play like a Raven, like I said.
Yeah, and obviously, great game. They played phenomenal in all 3 phases. Loved Tucker getting excited when he hit that field goal. It's always good to see him get jacked up when he makes those kicks. My few complaints, there was some week 1 sloppiness. Lamar, when he rolled out to his left and kind of heaved it into that pile of 3 Browns, I thought he did a good job last year getting out of bounds on runs. Early in the season, he would kind of take hits, and they started to get him to go out of bounds. Yesterday, a couple times, I thought he could have gotten out of bounds, and he took some unnecessary contact. And then again, he just ran with that not tucked in a few times, a little careless, made me a little nervous. I trust him. I trust the Ravens to clean those up. Again, we talked about this. I talked about this. There was no preseason. We are a phenomenal preseason team. I think we're at 16, 17 straight, something crazy like that. And it shows in our week 1 games. Harbaugh has an incredible week 1 record, and the Browns do not. They have not won since 2004. No preseason made me a little bit nervous. I thought it evened out the matchup a little bit more. The Ravens came out and proved they're the better team. It is still their division to lose, even with all the talent that the Browns brought in and how they brought in more insurance this offseason. the Ravens silenced some of the questions they had after that Titans performance.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, like you said, the no preseason, limited training camp obviously had some concerns, but the Ravens, despite, like you said, sloppiness yesterday, they really came out and showed that they really have not lost a step from last year. And one thing I would really like to point out, because we haven't really talked about yet on this pod, is how both the Sooner boys, Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews, did yesterday. Andrews looks like he's gotten even better from his Pro Bowl form last year. Hollywood Brown looks way improved. What are your thoughts on them two?
They balled out. I mean, you talk about my favorite play of the game was that deep ball Lamar had in the first half to Hollywood Brown. It was a dot on the money and still a tough catch. Hollywood pulled it in, showing that new strength he added. Mark Andrews, that one-hand touchdown. If they become a duo where we have insurance hands and a safety guy over the middle and Mark Andrews who can still make plays after the catch as a tight end, and then someone as explosive at Hollywood Brown on the outsides who can maybe come into the slot to get a few mismatches, our passing game is just going to be that much more special. Clearly, they are just going to continue to improve, which I love, which is shocking to see after how well they both did last year. I knew I had high expectations for Hollywood, but to see Mark continue to make that next step, and then post game for Lamar and Mark, Mark Andrews said that Lamar's the best in the world right now, and vice versa. Lamar said that Mark Andrews is top 2 tight end, and he's not number 2. So they clearly have great chemistry. It's great to see that they're both improving. I hope that duo continues to grow as the season progresses.
Yeah, and like I've said a million times, it sounds like a broken record at this point, but ever since we paired Hollywood and Mark together, I thought that we basically have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, like a duo like that. If you really think about it, they're basically the exact same players as one another. Mark Andrews and Hollywood Brown still obviously have a little ways to go, but I really think we're heading down the right track to get that type of duo.
No, it's a copycat league, and clearly, we're trying to replicate that, what they have in Kansas City, a little bit with that amazing speed and that insurance over the middle. That's just a nightmare for matchups in Travis Kelce. I wouldn't say we're quite there yet. I wouldn't say Baltimore thinks they're quite there yet, but I love that. They're motivated. They want to keep going. They think they can be better, and they are proving it week in and week out that they're going to continue to be on the rise. Last couple thoughts before we go into a little bit of a preview for our next week 2 matchup in Houston. I thought Orlando Brown had a tough matchup assignment to Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett, as we all know, had that incident last year. He clearly wanted to make a point of emphasis, but we're in a tough division with some great pass rushers in TJ Watt and Garrett. I think Brown needs to do a little bit stronger holding that side. And then as an end on a positive note, shout out to the secondary. In our last pod, I complained a little bit about my concerns with Earl Thomas being gone, just some of that shifting around. Can Tavon step up? Do we have enough depth now? They held Baker to about 4 yards per attempt. That is just not going to cut it. The receivers were frustrated. Baker was frustrated. Credit to the defensive scheme. Obviously, early in the season, people will get film on us. They'll study it. But to come out with that type of statement performance in secondary against a team with so many wide receiver weapons as the Browns was really great to see.
Yeah, I never lose confidence in our secondary. I mean, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, Tavon Young, Jimmy Smith, the best cornerback group in the league by far, in my opinion. And before we end this Cleveland game, I want to say one last thing. I know I've already kind of mentioned it, but once again, shout out to Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen is a rookie. Yesterday was his first game, period. We did not have a preseason this year, and Patrick Queen literally looked like an all-pro already. I mean, he was phenomenal yesterday. I just can't keep going on and on about how good Patrick Queen looked yesterday. He was amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I think people don't understand how special that performance is. There was no preseason, no rookie camps. I think there's an expectation now for rookies because we've seen it happen before for them to come in and make immediate impacts. But for on the defensive side of the ball, it usually takes longer. And he looked totally comfortable out there, and he was making big plays. It was great to see. And I have high expectations going forward. And of course, his post game rocking the Ray Lewis shirt, it shows what he thinks he can do and who he's records he's after. Not sure he's going to get there, but always shoot for the stars.
Especially considering Wink Martindale's defensive scheme, which is extremely complex. Patrick Queen being a rookie, not having a preseason, not having a rookie camp, very limited training camp, and coming in this complex scheme and really showing what he can do as the Mike linebacker. I forgot to mention that. He was the Mike yesterday, and he still dominated without having any really time to prepare. It really shows how confident he is and how fast of a learner he is. And I think as he gets more experience, Patrick Queen could be really scary just based off yesterday.
All right, on to week 2. So we're going to go to the 0-1 Texans for a 425 game. Logan, initial thoughts.
I mean, obviously, if I look at this game, based on how the Texans played week 1 compared to how we played in week 1, I would say we're definitely winning this game. Also based on how bad we beat them last year. But, you can't base things off of that because the NFL is extremely unpredictable. And the Texans, they're always going to be competitive as long as they have Deshaun Watson at quarterback. Deshaun Watson's a great quarterback. And even though Bill O'Brien completely ruined their roster this offseason, I think that it's still a game we should definitely care about considering they have Watson.
Yeah, I mean, tough start to the season for the Texans, having to face the Chiefs and the Ravens. I know they do not want to start 0-2, especially after all the roster turnover, all the questionable decisions they made. To start 0-2 would be a big blow to them and to team morale. They also, don't forget, have a long week to prep, and it's a travel week for us. They played the first game on Thursday night. Their run defense did not look great against Chiefs and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm not sure if that's because they game planned more for the pass or what the deal was there, but certainly, our rushing game wasn't as explosive as it was last year against the Browns on Sunday. A lot of that had to do because we were able to pass it so easily and cut through them like that, but hopefully it picks up week 2. Same as it did last year. We were a pass first team week 1, came out against the Cardinals week 2, ran all over them. So maybe we see the same formula for that. And like you said, you can never count out a team with Deshaun Watson. One thing I picked up in the Kansas City game was with Randall Cobb, with the addition of Brandon Cooks, those two guys, they were running a lot more short passes, bubble screens, those type of plays to get easy yards. We did a great job on Jarvis and Odell stopping them down the field, but I think we're going to have to come up against the line of scrimmage against Texans, play a little closer, a little more sure tackling, and we're going to have less opportunity to show that press coverage ability that we have with our two great corners.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be interesting when we play the Texans because Deshaun Watson poses a completely different threat than Baker Mayfield. And like the Texans, they may not have like top 15, top 10 receivers like Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, but even though they lost DeAndre Hopkins, they still have a really solid group of receivers with Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb, Will Fuller, Kenny Stills. So, I mean, it's not like their receiving core is bad. They obviously don't have that elite top tier talent anymore, but I trust our secondary to be able to handle their receiving core. The Texans defense, I think that's going to be really interesting. Our matchup versus them, like you said, they did not look very good versus Kansas City. Clyde Edwards-Helaire ran all over them. I feel like the Ravens might look off that and they may be like, hey, let's use J.K. Dobbins early and often at him because you saw how talented J.K. Dobbins was in the first game.
Yeah, another thing I want to note is the Texans defense did not look great, but where they did look great was down in the red zone. They did a nice job stuffing they did a nice job stuffing Kansas City's offense right when they got to the goal line. The Ravens have excelled in that area, so something has to give there. You would love to see J.K. Dobbins, as he did, patient, wait for the hole, and punch it in like he did in week 1. I wonder if they'll continue to use Dobbins down by the goal line or if that will be a Gus Edwards type deal as we progress in the season. I loved how Dobbins ran down there, but that'll be something to watch during the Texans game. And then, like you talked about, they did lose Hopkins, but that receiving core is still deep, and I like what they did. They have two great deep threats in Will Fuller and Kenny Stills, and then they have Randall Cobb and Brandon Cooks, some smaller speed guys to suck the defense up, make them play a little closer up to the line of scrimmage, and then they try to hit you with the Hail Mary plays deep. So secondary has to be disciplined. Those safeties, Chuck Clark, Deshaun Elliott, Anthony Levine, who's ever in there, they have to be on top of their game. Week 2 through week 5 is really where it keeps me nervous. I think week 1 we do a great job game planning and scripting, but 2 through 5, there's not a lot of tape out there. You don't know your team that well. That was the only stretch last season I thought our offensive team sort of struggled and didn't look absolutely dominant. It's hard to say they struggled in that stretch, but didn't look absolutely dominant. And I think here, again, it's a tough part of our schedule for that, and it starts with the Texans.
Yeah, honestly, I think if the Ravens come out and execute their game plan, we should be fine. Like, honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. I think we could blow out the Texans, or this game could be really similar to our Week 2 game versus Arizona last year. I really just think it really depends.
Yeah, and exactly. That's what I'm saying. If you remember that game, Baltimore led the whole game. They controlled, but it didn't translate to the scoreboard. Week 2, week 3, those are kind of tricky games. You're still trying to get your feet under you. Your opponents, there's not as much out there on them, especially a team like the Texans, which had so much roster turnover. Even though the quarterback matchup is still the same and the highlight of this game, these teams are different teams than when we faced them last season. So we're going to have to do our best, stay disciplined. Hopefully, we worked out those week 1 kinks and play good football. I agree with you. We execute our game plan. We are the better team and we win this game. But it's about stopping big plays, winning the turnover battle, limiting the penalties. I thought we had too many week 1, not giving that offense free yards.
Yeah, the one thing that worries me the most about this game is kind of like last year. I remember in that Week 2 game, Kyler Murray had a phenomenal game against us, and him and Watson are really similar quarterbacks in a way. So that's what kind of worries about me because, like, if the defense comes out slacking like they did last year in Week 2 versus Kyler, I feel like Deshaun maybe could do the same type of stuff to us. But let's hope not, obviously.
Yeah, and one thing we know is that we're going to dial up the pressure and try to get to Deshaun. We definitely have a little bit of advantage. We get to practice against Lamar Jackson, who's the more explosive of the two. They're going to work on containing him, keeping him in the pocket, stopping Deshaun from making big plays. I think when you look at this matchup, it's really about, executing and doing the little things. And that's always what it comes down to early in the season. The Browns made too many big mistakes yesterday. I thought they were trying a little bit too hard for big plays. We have to stay disciplined and play our brand of football, and we will win this game.
Yeah, and one final thing about this Houston game that I'd like to really mention is another thing that can really help us game plan for Deshaun Watson is the fact that we have Calais Campbell on this team now. Calais Campbell's with Jacksonville these past few years. He knows Deshaun Watson well. He's game planned for Deshaun Watson multiple times, so I feel like that can really help us, especially with the limited film we have now.
Yeah, just a quick thing on Calais Campbell. I'm not sure. I watched the NFL Top 100 list where they reveal all the players. Calais Campbell obviously on there. And they were talking about Calais, and they said he is willing to do the little things that don't show up in the stat book. And I was really watching for that yesterday. Obviously, he had the drop back where he started on the left side, made it all the way to the right side, reading the quarterback's eyes, and deflected the pass for the Marlon Humphrey pick on the first drive. That was great. But he did a great job collapsing the pocket, staying disciplined, not giving up on plays, led our defense in clogging that run. If you watched him, he really does a good job collapsing out in the end and not letting him bounce outside as much as they were able to get to the edge yesterday. They really tried to avoid Calais. So that's, again, something to watch. When you look at him, he is making an impact out there. He's great for the team, the defense front, and he's clearly already taken a leadership role on that side of the ball this early in the season.
All right, before we end this, what is your score prediction for Sunday?
All right, well, I lowballed us for last week. I was thinking 26-18, and the Ravens proved me wrong, as they so often do. So I'm going to say the offensive running game clicks, but it tires out the clock a little bit more. So I'm going to say the Ravens take this one. I'm going to go 34-10 as the final in Houston.
That's kind of bold. I could definitely see that. I'm going to go a bit closer, and I'm going to say something like 27-14, but I believe we beat Houston pretty comfortably.
Yeah, my big thing is, like we saw against Odell, I think Deshaun Watson, I know he just got paid, but he is trying to make the best of what was a bad situation, in my opinion, in Houston this offseason. I think he's going to get frustrated playing Patrick Mahomes and Lamar. You saw him late in the fourth when he was in Kansas City when he had that run and he went out of bounds and he just sat on the bench next to Mahomes and they both kind of just shook their heads laughing. I know he's an upbeat guy and he's the leader of this team, but I think if we sack him and we get big plays early and we put pressure on him, he'll get frustrated and not be able to pull it together, similar as he did in Baltimore last year. If you remember, that was a tied game at the end of the first quarter, and when we pulled away, he was just getting rattled and making some poor decisions.
Yeah, and like you said, Deshaun Watson, you feel like has more pressure on him now because with everything that's happened in Houston, like you said, he's probably going to be trying to do too much. So I feel like Wink is going to recognize that, bring blitzes at him. You saw Patrick Queen, how he shot that A-gap this past week versus Cleveland. I feel like they're going to try to do some similar stuff. They might try to do some interesting stuff with Elliott. I just know that Wink is probably going to really try to rattle Deshaun, like you said.
One last thing to note is they talked about David Johnson looked pretty good week 1, but because they were down a lot, similar to us in the Browns, the Texans were not able to get him the volume of carries they wanted. I think they're going to pound him early, try to get him some more touches. We have to be better against the run than we were last week. He doesn't get to the outside. He's not as explosive as Hunter Chubb, but we have to contain him. We have to stop him early, and I think we'll be good.
All right, guys, I think that's all we have left for this week on this pod. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. I know it's been kind of rocky. We've all been kind of busy with college, but you guys still continue to support the pod. I love it. It really shows the passion of this fan base. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at everything_Ravens. Make sure you follow at Everything Ravens Podcast on Instagram, which gives you all the latest updates involving this podcast. Quick shout out to Brooks Levo for helping me record today, and also quick shout out to our executive producer Spencer Silverstein. Brooks, do you have any final words?
Yeah, just shout out Spencer. Thank you again. Kyrie, we miss you. Thank you to our loyal listeners for always coming back. If you have suggestions for topics you want to hear us on, we will be doing game previews, game reviews, and big Ravens news. But if there's league stuff or other questions you have, feel free, DM us on Instagram, contact us, comment on posts. We are active. We are looking for things. We want to help out this Ravens fan base, this flock, and keep them up to date on everything we can. So I hope you enjoyed the pod, and we will be back soon.
Yeah, nice win versus Cleveland. We play Houston this week. Look forward to it.
1-0. Let's keep this thing rolling.
Turn back and forth. Oh, he broke his ankles. Now he's got an entourage, and he's got a touchdown. He is Houdini. What a play. 40, 30, 20, 10, one man to beat. Touchdown, Ravens.
They gonna get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that.